Alright, so we have Chapter 3, Section 3. We are getting into equations, one-step adding and subtracting. So our essential question is, how do I solve one-step equations using addition and subtraction? Alright, so the first couple questions we are going to solve the equation and check. When you do your practice problems, I'm not going to require you to check, but you do have to solve them. Now, equation is something I want done a certain way, so please make sure we're following all these steps and doing them exactly how we go through them today. Alright, so everybody's problem should look exactly the same. So our first one says x minus 5 equals negative 1. On every equation, I'm going to start off by drawing a line through the equal sign and drawing a line underneath that looks like that. Okay, every problem. So I'm going to look at the side that has the variable, which is my left side. My goal is to get the variable by itself. Right? The only way I can get the variable by itself is if I get rid of the subtracting 5. So I need to think, what is the opposite of subtracting 5, or what is the opposite of negative 5? Okay, that would be positive 5. On equations, we always want to stay balanced. So whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. So if I add 5 on the left, I need to add 5 on the right. Just like we learned a couple chapters ago, whenever I add opposites, that equals 0. So I can cross them off. And I'm going to bring down my variable, and I'm going to bring down my equal sign. I'm then left with negative 1 plus 5. Now, depending on how comfortable you are with integers, some of you may still need to go off to the side. Those are different signs. So I subtract, I keep the sign of the 5, and I end up with positive 4. Okay, so that is my answer. Now remember, when we are checking it, okay, I'm going to take this answer and plug it back in for my variable to see if it's still correct. So I'm going to put 4 minus 5 equals negative 1. Okay, 4 minus 5 does equal negative 1. Does negative 1 equal negative 1? I'm going to put a check, so that's how I know I'm correct. Let's go to number 2. The second one. P minus 5 equals negative 2. Right? Same concept. I'm going to draw my line. How do I get rid of a negative 5? Positive 5. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. When you add opposites, you can cancel and bring down your variable. Negative 2 plus 5 gives you positive 3. That is my answer. Once again, go back and check our solution. So 3 minus 5 equals negative 2. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Negative 2 equals negative 2. You know you are correct. So down below, when we look at decimals, it is the same exact thing. Right? Just we got to make sure we line up our decimals. Just as always, draw a line down. What is the opposite of positive 13.2? Negative 13.2. Whatever I do on one side, I do to the other. Opposites cancel. I bring down my W. Now here's where it's a little different than working with whole numbers. When we have decimals, I don't want you to try to do this in your head. Okay, I want you to kind of go off to the side, just like we did up here, right, to make sure we get this answer. So the first thing I look at, they're opposite signs, so I need to subtract. What's bigger, 13 or 10? 13. So 13 goes on top. Make sure your decimals are lined up. Different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the 13, which is negative. I subtract down. Can't do 2 minus 4. I need to borrow. 12 minus 4 is 8. 2 minus 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. My decimal comes straight down. So you have negative 2.8. That is my answer. Last part, remember we have to check. Once again with decimals, do not be doing this in your head. So negative 2.8 plus 13.2 equals 10.4. And I can't do that in my head, so they're different signs, so I subtract. Alright, so I get 10.4 equals 10.4, so we know we are correct. Alright, now let's look at fractions. Same things as decimals, you should not be doing any of this in your head. I always start on the side that has the variable. The opposite of positive 3/2 is negative 3/2. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Opposites cancel. Bring down your variable. Bring down your equal sign. Okay. So I have 1/2 minus 3/2. Remember, when I'm adding and subtracting, my denominator stays the same. So really, I'm left with 1 minus 3, which equals negative 2. Negative 2 over positive 2, which equals negative 1. That's my answer. Last thing we have to do is check. So I have negative 1 plus 3/2. Okay, so I'm going to put 1 over 1. So over here I have negative 1 plus 3/2. I need common denominators. So my common denominator I'm going to use is a 2. So negative 2 plus 3 gets you a positive 1. Sorry about that. And positive 1/2. So 1/2 equals 1/2. Alright, so in all these problems, we're doing the same exact process. Okay, we draw our line, we do the opposite of what our sign says. Whatever we do on one side, we do to the other. We can cross out our opposites, and then we end up getting our answer. Let's go flip to the back. Alright, we're only going to do one of these, so we're going to talk about more of these in class. So it says a company has a profit of $750 this week. The profit is $900 more than the profit last week. What equation? And I'm going to change that word to what because I took off the multiple choice. Okay, what equation can be used to find the variable p? So we need to set up an equation, right? So the first thing that's very important is the profit this week is. All right. So when I talk about that word is 900 more than the profit last week. So to represent 900 more than profit P last week, I need to be adding. Okay. So I'm going to be doing 900 plus the profit, because more than means add, and they're telling me to use the variable P. Now the other thing, I still have to write an equation. So an equation means I need an equal sign. So if the company has a profit of $750 this week, that's what it's going to equal. Alright, so it's $750 equals 900 plus P. 900 plus P represents $900 more than the profit which was last week. Alright, so eventually we would end up solving it. Okay, we're not going to right now because all we have to do is set up an equation, but this is how we would set it up. Now down below, you have 5 practice problems. Okay, notice on problem 2 and problem 5, your variable's on the opposite side, but you're still going to do the same process. Okay, so your thought process of how do I get rid of a negative 13 on this one? On number 5, your thought process needs to be how do I get rid of a negative 16? Alright, in every one of these problems, it should be set up like this. Alright, that's how we're solving all of these. All of ours should look exactly the same. Make sure you try every problem to get all your credit.